We're slowly making progress on risky business, our 1985 Porsche 928S. In this episode, I'm going to show you how we removed and replaced the water pump and what to look out for there, and how we've removed the harmonic balancer and the timing belt. Stay tuned. In this episode, I'll take you through how we first removed the harmonic balancer, then how we removed the timing belt tensioner system, then the timing belt, and finally we'll walk through how we removed and then replaced the water pump once the timing belt and related components were removed. Okay, before I start this section, you'll note the harmonic balancer is what looks like a pulley with an orange, half painted orange. That orange paint is the various timing markings for the engine position, and right now we have it locked at 45 degrees. You'll note that I have the accessory drive pulley bolt and its washer installed. Whenever I'm pulling a gear or a pulley like that, I like to, whenever possible, I like to put the nut back in before to have something to back the gear puller on. Particularly on this because it's the crankshaft and I don't want to damage the end of the crankshaft. I'd rather sacrifice a bolt if things go wrong. So what you'll see happen here is initially I put the bolt and the pulley washer in, but because we were so concerned about damaging the radiator if the puller popped off, we gained a little bit more clearance by removing that washer and reinstalling the bolt before we put the gear puller on. I did soak the shaft of the crankshaft with PB Blaster around the pulley first, and that I think really helped. You'll see how relatively easy this went. So there we are, just loosening the bolt, and it's hand tightened. That's all it needs to be. We put it in without the washer, and now we've got the gear puller installed, and it popped. It initially popped really easy, and then we could just wiggle it off. Probably took about 5 minutes in total. And there you see the harmonic balancer removed, and we still have the bolt hand tightened in the crankshaft. Moving on. In this section, we're taking out the hydraulic timing belt tensioner system. This maintains this is basically a mini hydraulic cylinder that we will have to rebuild, and I'll show how to do that in the next video. That unit is a key component that maintains tension on the timing belt. You'll notice as I close up into it that there's a wire hanging there. That is what sends the signal to the dashboard light if there's ever a problem with if it ever senses looseness there. So here we are taking the various bolts out for the timing belt tensioner system. That one holds it to the front of the block. This one holds it on you'll see a bit later, it's a bracket that holds it to the air pump, actually holds the air pump. And then this bolt here, you're about to see when I went to loosen it, it also attaches to the block, but it is now there's a close-up of it. You'll see it start leaking out. That's the 90 weight gear oil. We'll have to replace this in this tensioner system. So we'll show that in an upcoming episode. So this started leaking out, and now I'm zooming out here. We're trying to save it from leaking out onto the engine as we're trying to keep the engine clean. But now you'll see me taking off one of the idle rollers that's connected to the tensioner system. And this bolt actually goes through the block into the water pump. So now, of course, it's just an awful mess between the 90 weight gear oil and the coolant flushing out. We just had a pan underneath and just let it drain out its thing. So now with the timing belt tensioner arm removed and that roller bearing it supports, you'll notice that combined with the harmonic balancer removed, the timing belt immediately gets slack, and it's a pretty straightforward process to remove it. And you see now, there's no way, this close-up shot here, there would be no way to get that timing belt off without the harmonic balancer off first. Now what you're about to see is the bracket that holds the timing belt tensioner also acts as a support bracket for the emissions air pump. We needed to use a persuader on this, aka my flat crowbar, and that, after 35 years, there we go, took off. Okay. And then there's the gasket to the timing belt tensioner that is actually a mini fluid reservoir for the 90 weight oil. In this next section, I'm going to take you through how we removed and installed the water pump. So fun fact on the Porsche 928 of this vintage, actually all vintages, the engineers put 13 bolts. I think there's 15 total. 13 actually hold the water pump in, and I'm holding. So what I'm doing in this next video is I actually drew an outline of the water pump, because not only is there a variety of bolts, it may be hard to see, but they used two different sizes. So it's imperative you get the sizes in the right place, otherwise you'll drive yourself insane trying to know which one's which. So do yourself a favor. This goes for a lot of assemblies, really. But here's the latest example. I did an outline of it, and there, it helps when it's right side up. And I think this will go a long way for reassembling or putting the bolts in correctly. So you see me here. I am tracing it around, and unfortunately, it's big enough I have to kind of estimate where the bolts are. But you get the idea that this is very helpful, and by putting it in the corrugate like that, it acts as the guide, and we know where all the bolts are. I can't imagine, knowing myself, that if I had that in a plastic bag, trying to figure out which bolts go where would have been a nightmare. I would have been having to call in a favor with some mechanic to know which one's which, because the diagram in the book doesn't show where they go. All right, so here you get to see the disassembly as we both work on it. What you don't see is we are putting the bolts into the template that I just showed you a second ago. And taking the bolts out, candidly, was the easy part. A couple hidden. We thought we had them all, and then realized because of the template we didn't. That was also helpful. Now it's a question of getting this water pump off. The orange persuader didn't work. Putting the crowbar in the various sections wasn't working. We finagled around. We did not want to use the surface of the where the gasket lies. You always want to try to avoid that, because you're just making more work for yourself and potentially just do a leak. So eventually Nick found that underneath on that right side we could put the crowbar in, and that was enough. Now you start seeing more fluid coming out. He was able to get behind it here, and now we were able to take it out slowly but surely. And we realized there's two guide pins. I'll show where those are in a little bit. Now it became an effort of a lot of steam cleaning combined with... So Nick would go around and basically do the gasket material. The engine's filthy, and I'm going to probably spend the better part of today continuing to clean it. Here I am using 1200 grit sandpaper to take the old gasket material off. Well, it came clean off. Most of it came clean off on the water pump. I can't imagine not taking the time here to get this perfectly smooth and ensuring that there's no gasket material left, because what you don't want to do is there's a nice gasket. We don't need to use RTV on this. We're going to rely on the gasket to do this. So here's the gasket, and I'm about to show the reason that's being held on. You'll see the 2 guide pins here I've put in. There it is. So there's the one guide pin. There's the other guide pin. And those are where we're holding the gasket on. And then as we went to install the water pump, we had to make sure we lined with those guide pins, and it was a tension fit. So we used the soft blow hammer to put it back into place. So that's what it takes to remove the timing belt and its tensioner, as well as remove and replace the water pump on a 32-valve 5-liter Porsche 928S. In the next installment, we'll take you through what it takes to clean and rebuild that tensioner system, as well as putting the new belt in and getting that to the proper tension. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and find it informative, please subscribe and press the like button. And if you haven't done so already, please check out our main website, guyswithrides.com, the only ad and dealer-free community for collector car enthusiasts on the internet. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Stay safe.